Hello, everybody. This is really great to be here today. We're joined by some fascinating practitioners and by Jamie's cat. So, ta-da! Um, who are we? We are a few people that are involved with the 22 Donor Participation Conference. Is specifically people that are going to be taking part in the lightning round presentations, which is kind of a cool concept. I don't know exactly how we thought about this, and Jamie's on our steering committee. It was somebody's idea, but it's a really good one. So just really short presentations. There will be time for longer presentations. There will be time for conversations, breakout rooms. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And we just wanted to spend some time with you today and have you get a little kind of, coming attraction of what you're going to hear about on Friday. So what we plan to do is just go around this virtual room, introduce ourselves, say what, tease up what we're going to be talking about on Friday. And if anybody has questions, please put them in the chat. If you're listening in from somewhere interesting like Hawaii or Allentown, Pennsylvania, please share that with us. So without further ado, I'd like to hear about Nick Prenger and your presentation on Friday. It's going to be so cool.
Yeah, we're very excited. Thanks for having us, Louis. So, Nick Pringer, we're going to be talking in lightning speed about three really cool automations that we built. So we run large annual appeals, 5 million, 10 million, $20 million for clients. We've really gotten into using Microsoft's product called Power Automate that lets you connect things like Razor's Edge to things like Outlook and Gmail and SharePoint and all of these things. So we're going to share some automations that you absolutely can't live without. For us, the beauty is always in the small things, right? The annoying little tasks that you have to do every day or every week that suddenly you automate it and your life has never been the same. So we're going to be talking about that, fielding any questions people have about any and all things automation.
That's so cool. And Nick, before you leave, I understand you have to go, but before you leave, tell us about your firm, Prenger Solutions
Yeah,
Group.
yeah, for sure. So Pringer Solution Group, we run large annual appeals for clients across the country. We also have a couple software products. So we started out as consultants, right? That's our day job. And then we'd run into these problems and we think, well, we could probably find somebody who can help us solve that. So we've got a tool out there called Ask Genius, which helps nonprofits comb through the mountains of data you have sitting inside your donor database to set the perfect ask amounts for your direct mail strings. We also have an automation thing that we're building up right now based in Omaha. I'm actually here in Denver. Lewis was kind enough to let me go first. My son, my 10-year-old son, and I, he's a huge music fan, so we went to a concert at Red Rocks last night, and now we're just checking out and heading back to the hotel. We got to get him back so we can catch up on his homework. But I appreciate you letting us in here.
Oh my goodness. Thanks so much. We have folks from Napa, from India, from Wisconsin. So this is so cool to be here with all of you. And I must not forget to mention the very generous supporters of the conference, Evertrue, who made it possible to have scholarships for anybody who wants to join, Boyden, who made it possible for us to support our expert facilitators, Zuri Group, and Jamie seems to have disappeared. Oh, she's back.
She's back.
Oh, yeah. So for those who just arrived, we're just going to be doing a very brief round robin of introductions, share who you are, who you're with, and what you're going to be talking about. And if you need to go at any point, please do so. I'm going to go on with Jeff Hallett.
Yeah, hi. So Jeff Hallett from Penn State. I have been at Penn State for about 10 years, working their annual giving office, overseeing digital fundraising, student philanthropy, and recent graduate philanthropy. And for the conference session on Friday, I am going to try to cram in 2 minutes or less some information about Airtable and how we use that to do a lot of different things, um, including, how we're using it in our solicitation efforts, how we're using it to test new processes and new setups, and then how I'm using it a little bit for the work that I do personally. And so yeah, so should be difficult to cram into 2 minutes, but I'll get it there. So
Hopefully you'll give people a flavor. And I have to say, you and Jamie got me started with Airtable. And once you go down that rabbit hole, there's no
Yep.
coming back.
Nope. Yep. It's I use it for almost everything I do. So
Absolutely wonderful. So we have Dan Lombardi here too. Dan, you just have a newsletter out. I'm already subscribed to it. And
Oh, yes,
tell us what you're
thanks.
going to share.
Yeah, I'm Dan. I'm at Grand River Hospital Foundation in Kitchener, Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. Yes, Lewis is right. I do have a random LinkedIn newsletter that I wrote today. Partially be talking about what we're talking about today. It's called No Code Nonprofit. So follow me on LinkedIn and subscribe, where we're just going to start giving away kind of all the stuff we do at work, because nonprofits are a sharing community. So in 3 minutes or less on Friday, what I'll be talking about is our attempt at a new donor journey. So the idea behind, instead of having one giving officer, let's say assigned to like 150 prospects or donors, is there a way where we could do it where one giving officer is assigned to 5,000, which sounds kind of crazy. And so some of the tools we've been using to try and automate that donor journey, so that we can still connect with donors on a personal level.
Amazing. And I see so many points of overlap, right? Your automation, the tools that Everdrew has, the work that everybody here is doing. So up next, Jamie Loeb.
So I am Jamie Loeb. I am a senior consultant with Zuri Group, but until the end of last year, I was on the other side of the desk, raising every dollar I spent for various things. And I'm going to be talking about something called Zapier, because I cannot talk about Airtable for only 2 minutes. I just can't. So Zapier is one of the ways that you can get information from one place to another without having to write code. It's part of that no-code revolution that's happening kind of, it was a little under the radar for a while, but now it's expanded. And so I'm really excited to see how that can help nonprofits do more.
This is amazing. It truly does feel like we're on the verge of this kind of transformational moment. And we just heard about Microsoft Power Automate, about Airtable, about Zapier, and so many other tools, and especially tools that are specific for our sector, right? Do we want to give the word to JD Beebe, who's part of our very generous conference sponsor, who's made it possible for us to offer full scholarships to this. So JD, hi.
Hey, thanks, Lewis. Thanks, the panelists and to the viewing public out there. I'm JD Beebe, president of Evertrue, previously CEO and co-founder of ThankFew. And I am really excited to be part of the revolution, the DPP revolution. And on Friday, we'll be speaking about Scrappy Innovation. So what are ways that obviously there's, as a vendor in the space, we're always looking to create solutions, but even in the absence of a paid platform, how can we be getting more out of the tools we have readily available to us, both in our pocket and then across our social profiles? So how can we kind of dive into the data, understand who's engaging with the content we're creating, and then make sure that we reach out and build those relationships? Because at the end of the day, we strive to be able to create meaningful relationships with people through video, but then also figure out who we're going to be able to spend our time on. Because as much as we love every single person in the donor pyramid, we don't have that many gift officers or donor experience officers to connect personally with every single one. So that's what I'm going to be speaking about, and I appreciate just being involved, Lewis. So thank you.
This is great, and you guys are just so committed to sharing and to kind of being a part of the ecosystem. It's amazing. And you talked about love, JD, and Anne Murphy has this amazing talent. She can make it like a heart with her hands. I don't know how you do that. There you go.
It's really hard. It's really, really hard. One of the best
I
things
think you're up next. There you
one
go.
hand go like this, and then the other one like this. Yeah, there you go. See, and then you just send it out.
Oh my goodness, I can't do a
There you
screenshot
go.
while I do this.
Okay, is that my cue, Lewis?
I think so. Yes. What are you going to tell us about? What are you going to share with everybody who's going to the conference on Friday?
All right, so first, hi everybody, I'm Anne Murphy, and we're all like new friends, but some are even newer because this is the first time I've ever laid eyes on you, and it's really nice to meet you. So I'm going to talk about technology history, who put it there, who created these tools that we're using, what foundations did they build those on, were they foundations of white supremacy, and should we be calling into question the tools that we already use? And therefore, should we put our foot on the gas to learn new tools more quickly? and how in our organizations we can communicate about that so that we don't end up just hating each other, because implementing new technology is really awful sometimes. But it's also incredibly empowering. We can do hard things, we can learn new things. And I think, and what I'm sharing is that it's a really good idea for us to do that right now, because so many of the systems that we're working in are based on premises that none of us here on this call actually believe in.
Amazing. So, Anne, you're going to give us a little bit of therapy, is what I understood. And we need to improve ourselves before we improve the tech.
Yes, exactly.
Which is kind of essentially it. Wonderful. Cameron, would you like to share a little bit of what you're going to educate us on this Friday?
Yes, and thank you for having me. I'm Cameron Hall, and I work in annual giving and lead generation at the University of South Carolina. And really what I hope to talk to in 3 minutes or less is how we can use some of the tools that we already have to emulate some of the services that, if you are strapped for resources, you can't buy some of these bigger platforms. How can you sort of do a light version of what they offer? And so we'll go through maybe 2 or 3 strategies, depending on how time flows, to just talk about some quick wins that can actually help you prove the case to go down the route of looking at some of those bigger tools to help you do more. And it'll be a good conversation.
That's so cool. And it's really about building that case and managing up, right? With technology too. Thanks, Cameron. Adriana, last but not least, we're so excited to see you.
Hey, Louis, it's just so good to be here and so good to see so many new faces. And what I want to talk about this Friday is I am a very lazy person who hates to be sitting at a desk entering stuff in a database. So with that, and I think many of my peers might, the idea might resonate with them that they don't want to be doing the same thing, and maybe they want to do something else. And we come with this creative idea of how can we leverage technology to assist our gift admin entry, and how can we leverage technology to think for us, because the data already knows what it needs to do. So why do I need a person to do it, and why do I need to be sitting on my desk doing that? So that's what I'm going to talk about this Friday, and I'm looking forward to hear everybody.
That's amazing, Adriana. And Dan, I think, has a little bit of an experience with working on the admin side and automating things there, right?
Yes. We've in my current role, or before I got back into more donor fundraising through automation, it was a lot of process improvement stuff through automation. And so, yes, I have a whole bunch of automations that I could share. We have some simple ones for like reissuing tax receipts, because there's not always an easy way to do that in like Razor's Edge, for example. So we built one that does that for us automatically. I'm trying to think of the other ones. Oh, we have automatic notifications that we've like built very simply. So if someone donates above $1,000 on our website, let's say, the correct staff member immediately gets an email notification, so they can call them within like 2 minutes to thank them. So yeah, you want to talk about stuff to not be lazy or to save you a bunch of time, send me a message at any time and I'll happily share with you all the ones that we've built. So
awesome. There's just going to be so much to learn. Hey, something that we haven't talked about, or maybe Anne kind of teed up, is that change management and that, leading up. And, I think everybody here is pretty innovative and you've tried things at your organizations. Tell us about your experience. What has been most successful? Did you try things on your own and then show people, or did you kind of go on a campaign and then try to get them bought in and then do things? Does anybody here have experiences to share in that realm?
I find that the most important first step is getting people to understand that whatever it is can be better. And that is often like the biggest challenge, especially when you have people that have been doing something the same way for a long time. And if you layer on top of that a little bit of technophobia that is somewhat common in nonprofit spaces, that there's this assumption that like, oh, if we're going to do it differently, it's going to break everything. Everything's going to be terrible if it's different. I'm not going to know how to do it. Things like that. So I think the sort of the preliminary work that I always do when I know I'm gonna I want to try a new thing is to get a wide swath of people on board with this idea that we can do better in this thing. And then I start mentioning hey, so I have this solution. And then it's a much easier conversation, I find.
That's a good approach. Has anybody else tried kind of the opposite? Oh, don't look at me, it's a test or it's a pilot, and just don't mind me. Here I am rebuilding our database in Airtable.
Sounds like Cameron. I'm excited to see your presentation, right?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. I've done very much the Jamie thing. Actually, one of my bosses and mentors at a previous institution used to encourage me to do what we would call wants, needs, wishes meetings, where we would just sit down, draw 2-3 columns on the board, and discuss one area that we'd want to improve, and invite everyone who was invited to or who would touch that piece so that they can really see written out on the board in those columns that the process could indeed be better once we saw that wants and wishes list grow longer and longer. But then there are also those cases where you've kind of got to just do a little bit of the work, show manually. So one of the things that we've done, and when I was looking at how we might use artificial intelligence to bring that into an organization, is we really just sat down and created our own lookalike audience. It took hours and weeks to do to cross-section all of our data for our call center. We applied it in that approach because it was our declining channel, but we saw an uptick in donations in about a week after we got the process done, and that showed us within that time frame that maybe we could be using a better tool that can do this automated and on a more regular basis to drive those one-to-one interactions on a much broader scale than my team spending almost 3 weeks just doing the manual work. But once it was done, the results were almost instant. And so I think sometimes both of those approaches, and you just got to weigh when to do which.
That's really good stuff. And JD, you all kind of have to deal with it from the outside, right? How to convince or how to get your champions, your internal champions, on board with with your solutions. How is that? How is that process? Do you like to start at the top? Does it depend in every place?
It's just like we're all unique snowflakes, but there are some organizations where people want to jump right in and just really curious. As a tech user myself, I like to just kind of poke around. I like to press buttons, see what they do. I just think it's the fastest I learn by doing. And to Cameron's point, the way we work with some of our organizations is kind of do things that don't scale. Hey, we have every walkthrough, we have every FAQ that you could read, but oftentimes it is hopping on a call. It is showing them I'm not going to do it for you, but let's walk through a campaign. Let's see how it's done. The second they press that send button and they see the reaction and they check the metrics, they say, okay, that's something I can achieve, and it kind of makes the impossible feel possible. And that's what we strive to do. We just really try to, once we get you to that aha moment, then it's just, okay, how can I repeat this and how can I make it easy for you to show other people too? Because it's at the end of the day, we want the internal stakeholders dreaming up the new things, and then it's our job to make sure we're listening and say, oh, you want to do what? You want to do this? And as much as we can automate those things, but also the fact that we're talking about Zapier, and Dan, I'm sorry I missed your intro, but I'm just super excited to see what other automations we can do in unison just to make lives easier. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, amazing. So I think, and you just mentioned the tagline for our next conference: make them possible. Possible. So thank you, sir. We'll send you the copyright check.
Louis, can I build on what JD just shared? And Cameron too. So I think that one of the key components of managing change is to get the end user to that win as fast as possible. Even if it's only a little slice of a win from our point of view, it's getting them to that section of, they're going to think, I'm not good at computer machines. I don't learn new things anymore, right? So no one wants to be in that section that we all live in as human beings when you don't know how to do something and you're learning to do something, right? So we want to get them to the point as fast as possible where they get a little taste of feeling that sense of accomplishment. And we want to be sure that they know that while they are learning, we all, or, you know, organizational leadership and blah, 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 understand that there may be a drop in productivity, right? Like, we're going to support you while you're learning, right? That they can have time to whatever their learning style is. If they need to clear their entire calendar to learn thank you for, you know, 5 hours and sit by themselves and do it, or if they need to have somebody sitting right next to them, it's like making the space, making the time, not pretending a major technology implementation isn't happening. And I think that that's part of, you know, being able to gain some momentum early on that's going to get people through the frustrations when they go to, like, right, they're like 101 and then they go to 102. Like, we want to get them, have that momentum. And I think that that helps a lot, getting them to that win as soon as possible.
That's so cool. I love all of this. It sounds like we're just talking about gadgets and tech, but it's such a person, it's such a people thing. Adriana, I think you have a comment.
Yeah, I just want to add. So the principles that I applied before is design thinking, and that is very important because you have to not bring a solution and impose it into people, but you want to the solution, I mean the people, to impose the solution. And it's kind of a communication tool where you can hear about their pain points and bring them to the table, and as you are going through these, they are building their solution, they are making it easier for themselves, and they are giving you the cues of what will work and what will not work. And then at the end, they feel ownership of whatever end product you come up with. Right now my team is going through that. And sometimes you don't need a big technology budget or a big bucket. It sometimes it's just bringing those people, and big issues or big roadblocks just go away, and then you find that gold nugget that technology will address, and then you have that moving forward.
Really good insight. Adriana, did you mention what organization you're with? I think I missed that.
I don't think I did. I work for the U.S. Naval Academy Alumni Association and Foundation, and we serve the academy that trains our naval officers. And I'm just very proud to be here at this organization.
That's amazing, and thank you for introducing design thinking as a concept. No code. So I'd love to hear what that is for folks who are maybe listening or who have questions about what that thing is, but also maybe hear about your personal experience discovering no code. And I know Jeff and I had some back and forth on LinkedIn and DMs, and he was sharing like what he was building. How did you stumble into that part of the tech world?
Yeah, so at least the no code piece was sort of accidental, but what I was looking for was something to help us manage our giving day. We have a sort of unique participation setup where anybody who wants to raise money for anything at Penn State can join in and fundraise. And so we needed something that would allow us to keep track of all of those people, but also be able to provide what's their status. What are they working on? What do they need to do? What are we waiting for on them for? And so our current, our old method was Excel sheets, and we would pass it around or store it on our shared drive, and we'd have 75 different copies. And so then I found Airtable, and it does everything that we need it to do. There's, as I think Jamie was saying, you don't need to know how to write in HTML code or JavaScript or any of the fancy technology languages. You just need to be able to know what you want to store in the system and how to drag and drop columns, kind of thing. And so that's how I interpret no code. Is you don't need to know any of the programming languages. You just need to be able to understand what you're trying to visualize or try to show people, and the systems are built to deliver that for you, and it's sort of the drag and drop approach in a lot of respects.
And I think there's developing sort of two categories that I see is of no code stuff. So it's this idea that you're like building apps without having to write code, right? Or automations without having to write code. And I think some of them, like Airtable and Zapier, are very point and click. It's written in English. It does exactly what you think it's going to do. And then some of them are organized in such a way that even if you don't know, like, it doesn't expect you to know a coding language, but it expects you to be able to think in the order that a coder would think, right? It sort of expects you to understand that sort of logic of coding. And I think it's not impossible to learn, obviously. It's still written in English, still does what you think it's going to do, but I guess that second part is a little less. So there's a wide range of these tools. And I think the most useful ones to start with are the things like Airtable and Zapier, where it's like, you create an action that says send an email. And it sends an email, and you type in what you want that email to look like, So I think it is such a game changer in terms of your ability to like make software do what you need it to do, whether or not it was actually designed to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, JD, of the waves you made last year with the Zapier integration. How have people been kind of extending your suite of tools with these tools, with these no-code tools?
Yeah, so we have a handful of folks that after, if they're not an NXT, which we have the direct integration there, if a gift comes in, being able to use the Zap to say, hey, push this person into a campaign, append this video, send automatically, and then push that data back into their CRM. So we've been doing that internally from NPS scoring. So I don't know, if there's any people out there that are that have received a video from me. Every time I get a 9 or a 10 NPS, that goes into a campaign. I personally thank them, ask for a review. So if you go to G2 or Capterra, those are all people that I've personally asked for a review. And then if they're below an 8 or below, that gets routed to our product team to say, hey, what's going on? How can I help? So we're even, using the term eating our own dog food internally. So I'm always like, I like to hop on and find new blog posts like what are the new crafty ways to use Zapier, just to play around, like even in my personal life, just trying to tie systems together and see what happens.
You're going to give us a severe case of FOMO, because I don't think I've received that email from you. And maybe
maybe you haven't got the NPS. Maybe we haven't asked you for a score yet, or you gave me below a 9, so you got
no, I didn't get it. I promise, and I didn't delete it. And maybe everybody who's at the conference is going to feel the same as me. Like, I want an email from that guy. So we'll definitely fix that. No more thoughts on no code. Dan has a new.
Yeah, we do this a lot at work, but I just have to comment on what JD said around just playing around in Zapier. Some of the stuff that we do at work currently is just we've looked to see what tools connect to Zapier and then say, hey, will this make our life easier? So it's not always a tool that we were thinking of originally sometimes, but it's like, hey, this tool can be used in the business world, and this is how a business or marketer would use this tool. Why can't the same practice be applied to a nonprofit? And so that's how we end up coming up or determining sometimes what some of the software is that we use. Not because Zapier is the end all be all. There's definitely other automation tools you can use. Like I think there's Automate.io is one of them, or Tray.io I think is another one. So there are other ones out there, but it's more a matter of like, oh, if we see that this is a pre-built Zap that we can maybe steal from, or it does this one application, maybe we can apply that or tweak it slightly to do something that works for us. And then I think to Jamie's earlier point, logically it's like, oh, I feel like I just need to know what I want it to do. And it makes sense. I do find sometimes, or we've gotten into a few things in Zapier where we're like, oh, well, the data is sent across in like one way and we need to change how the data looks to then move it into another app or application. And although Zapier is very easy to use, sometimes that's a little bit more codey. I mean, I constantly sometimes have to ask Zapier, help to say like, hey, I always forget what's the Boolean operator here for like true false. I don't actually remember if I'm supposed to click true or false here. Sometimes their help is really great, so it's not usually the end of the world, but it does come up sometimes. But I think you're right. It's simple things around ways that we can improve our life. For some of the change management internally, when we're trying to think of these things, what we do is we basically ask two simple questions: is what do you do currently that takes up way too much of your time, and what do you want to be able to have more time to do? And so essentially, then it's trying to find a nice middle point to be like, okay, if this takes up way too much of your time, then let's find a way with automation or tools like Zapier or Airtable, if we want to use that or something, to say like, okay, guess what? We're just going to suddenly give you back like a whole bunch of free time. And now you can go ahead and do it is what you think you should be doing or what you want to do. So that sometimes helps some of our staff.
Well,
You know, I do want to add one little bit of a little tiny, minuscule little asterisk to this no code revolution of awesomeness. And it's that issue you just pointed to in terms of like data manipulation, data conversion, things like that. So there's all of these tools to move information from one program to another, from one place to another. But what happens when they speak slightly different languages, right? You get the information from me to someone in Montreal, but that someone in Montreal only speaks French or Quebecois, right? Not super handy if they get it in English. So figure that piece is often the sort of monkey wrench in the works. It is usually solvable, and it's usually requires, you know, you don't necessarily need the 32nd degree nerd. You can usually go with somewhere in between, right? So as you dive into these new tools, it's just important to know that like there may come a point at which there is that some expertise in that area required, but it is not insurmountable.
I think that
for the purpose of change management, and Jeff, you probably got to this too. I think the other thing is, think about the platforms you already have readily available, whether it's Microsoft Automate or if you're a Google house and you use Google Sheets and these other things. Sometimes just showing, hey, this email I can drop into a spreadsheet. From that spreadsheet, I can then automate this next task. And you're not paying for any new platforms. You're just kind of like showing the wizardry, like shoot, send me that email, whoop, and then that thing happens, and they're like, holy moly! So, I think showing people in fits and starts of, hey, what I just did is possible here. We're going to make even more possible if you let me kind of go down this road, because I think people like to kind of see it in action, because it might just be, they might just not get it if they don't see it, an example of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, it's important to kind of recognize that you don't always need to go out and find a new solution. Sometimes the tools that you have in-house have things that you're not using to its fullest capacity, and I think we found that in a couple different cases. It's actually why I use Airtable the way I do, because we have a project management system that we use internally, and Airtable allows me to test things and make sure that I'm not breaking our project management system, so that I can then migrate it from Airtable into our existing system, which then lets everybody use it. And so it's don't neglect the tools that you have in-house already for the shiny object. But the other thing I was going to say is, I think one of the nice things that has come from some of the no-code solutions out there, like Power BI or something like that, is so often when I would request reports from our data and analytics group, what I was asking for is different than what was interpreted as what I wanted. Or said differently, I would ask for a question and I would get a report back that wasn't showing exactly what I thought I was asking for. And one of the nice things about these no-code solutions is, one, I could either build it myself and kind of let the system interpret the data so that I'm saving time from our analysts, but it also helps us helps our analysts kind of translate for us, to Jamie's point about the 30-second level nerd. It allows them to take this really high level of data sophistication down to the people who are at my level that don't know all of the data like the back of my hand, and helps you kind of see, okay, so if you're asking for this metric, here's what that's actually going to show you, and it helps kind of translate in new ways, and that's been really helpful.
That's so cool. So I think we've touched on lots of the topics that we'll be discussing on Friday. I'm so excited. Something that I believe the facilitators, Jason Shim and Mina Das, will be touching on too is a little bit of what we just said, how there's a continuum of kind of proof of concept, minimum viable product, and then at some point you may have enough there to get a solution that's actually designed for your shop. And that's going to be really exciting to see that transition, because I feel lots of people think of it in kind of binary terms, right? It's either all or nothing, or I'm stuck here doing things by hand. So hopefully this helps everybody in the ecosystem. So any closing remarks that we have? Do you want to tell anybody? I have no idea what you might want to share, but just if you want to, just what would you tell people about the conference if you wanted to get them to come?
Oh, I'll start on this one from the last two sessions. Yeah, everything's been very practical, I would say, in a good way. And it's just great to hear peers essentially to say like, hey, I've tried this and this is how it worked for me. And sometimes that's refreshing and hard to find, and how easy and accessible everyone's been. So like, oh, maybe a lightning round presenter only had 3 minutes to talk to them, but it's very easy to be like, hey, I want to talk to you about what you just presented. Do you have time? And I know of some of the lightning round presenters I've reached out to afterwards. It's like, oh, that's very cool. I didn't think of it that way. Do you have time to talk about this? And they're like, oh yeah, no worries. Just let me know. And so I think that it's more of a community. It's the people that are up there talking they're just sharing to you what they did, what they learned from it, but it's not necessarily to say that they're the experts. And I've learned just as much from attending those sessions as I hope someone will learn from me when I present on Friday. So
that's very cool. So we plan to have over 100 experts in that room. Boys are going to get rowdy. Well, grateful to all of you. We're going to wrap this up. Especially grateful to JD and his early support of the Donor Participation Project and now the conference. You guys are amazing. And I look forward to keep learning, keep networking, and keep up these fantastic relationships. Thanks so much. Have a great one.
Thanks, Louis.
Good Friday.
Thanks, everybody.